What you can do is
when you don't have a place to work.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the meeting of April 17th of the Finance Committee to order. First, an announcement. Any member of the public has the right to make an audio or video recording of an open session of a public meeting as defined by Massachusetts statutes. A member of the public who wishes to record such a meeting must notify the chair and comply with reasonable requirements regarding audio and video equipment established by the chair so as to not interfere with the meeting. The chair is required to inform other attendees of such recording at the beginning of the meeting. So everyone knows WCTV is televising this and will be maintaining a video record of the proceedings. I would like to next take a roll call of the Finance Committee, and then I'll address the Board of Selectmen. And
Mr. Chairman, Dooley, Mr. Trudell, Mr. Gray, myself, and Chairman, Vice Chairman, Mr. Heath.
Mr. Titlebaum, would you like to open the Board of Selectmen's meeting?
Yes, opening a meeting of the Board of Selectmen for April 17th, 2013, Middle School Auditorium. Roll call, please. Okay. You good?
Board of Selectmen present: Peter Titlebaum, Judy Whiteside, Patrick Tropiano, Alan Slavin.
You also, Mr. Titlebaum? Mrs. Vugan, would you like to open the School Committee?
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to open up the School Committee for the purposes of meeting with FinCom and the Board of Selectmen to discuss the budget. All in favor? Aye. We have a roll call. We have Dr. Sylvia, Mr. Flaherty, Mr. Sweat, and myself, Rhonda Bugan.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to start off by thanking the Board of Selectmen and the School Committee for accepting our invitation to come tonight to discuss the matter of what the FinCom sees as its potential alternatives at town meeting, its recommendations. I would also like to thank Mr. Sullivan for being here as well. If we have any questions that come to him, I would hope that we would be able to avail ourselves of his services. Generally, the way the FinCom runs his meeting is we do act by parliamentary procedure. I'm not necessarily a strict enforcer of it. However, I do ask that sensitive questions, etc., go through the chair. I reserve the right to ask for questions and answers to come through the chair. That's how we operate it. It works very well for us. In the past, it's cooled a few things off. If you are speaking, if we get a little conversation going back and forth, which I hope we will not necessarily do, if I divert it off to somebody, I will come back to you. I never leave you totally stranded, but sometimes it's in the best interest of the progression of the meeting to do that. The other side is we tend to be a no-holds-barred committee. We don't necessarily say that anything goes, but we're here to discuss issues and actions. So we tend to say what's on our mind and put it out there, and sometimes people's nerves get a little frayed or whatever, but please don't take anything personally, and we won't take anything personally either. The main reason for us asking you to come tonight was so that we could explain a vote that we took last week. And that vote, we were facing a situation of we have received two budgets. We have received one which is a balanced budget, which pretty much is very, very close to what we received in December. And we also received a budget which is the balanced budget with an addition based on the number that the school department passed. So we have a balanced budget, which is revenue-based, and we have an unbalanced budget because it is more expense-oriented. Our job is to advise town committee as to what we should do, or what they should do, not what we should do, but what they should do. And that's what we will do that evening. The problem that we run into is that as we looked at the budget, the balanced budget, there were certain things that we felt that were essentially critical to the operation of the town that were missing. Most importantly, we're looking at the report from our sister committee, the Capital Planning Committee, and we're noticing things such as ambulances, cruisers, repairs to significant repairs to a roof. We're looking at communications problems. We're looking at various types of building maintenance that needs to be done. All right, we were looking at 0 capital items. We feel that that is not right. We're also looking at a capital plan that has no repairs for the buildings, either whether they're the town, what we recognize as being town buildings, or what we know to be school buildings, but in fact are also town buildings. There are repairs, et cetera, that we felt that needed to be addressed, and they are not addressed. We were also looking at what the past history has been over the last couple of years, where the compromises have come, where the layoffs have come. We see that we have one part of our town government that has made significant concessions over the last 2 years. The other part of the town government has also made concessions as well. But one in particular is now on the verge of literally, in some of our minds, and I will say some because we don't all agree on our committee, in some of our minds is literally taking the system apart. For that reason, we had real problems with saying that we wanted to take favorable action on the balanced budget. This most recent one, we came back and said, okay, we'll come up with a course of action. Our prior vote, or actually our first vote, which is recorded in the report of the committee, all right, was, I believe, 2-5-0. All right, 2 in favor, 5 against the budget, and 0 abstentions. We came back and rescinded that vote at a later date when we had new information given to us, and we literally voted to reject the budget because of the missing items, knowing full well that that would not go to town meeting. We would not take it to town meeting. Our problem last week was, well, which one do we support, or can we support, or which one should we advise town meeting that might be in their best interest? Our decision was that the best interest might be if an amended budget comes to the floor, we would support it. But we would support it only, and it's right in our motion, only if the 3rd week of June a special town meeting was called, and during the interim that the school committee, the school superintendent, the town administrator, and the Board of Selectmen were to meet and solve the budget. Sit down, decide where the hard decisions had to be made, pretty much as a group. That means both sides are going to have to do things. Both sides are going to have to give up some things that they don't want, and I think the school has already been in the process of doing some of that. The town has been in the process of doing that, but we still wind up, the last number we have shows a deficit, and I understand one side has one number, and the other side has another number. The number that we're looking at in the budget is a deficit of approximately $913,000. Pardon? Which one is this? Yeah, hold on. There's a little confusion. I think you can imagine how many budgets we've seen between December and now. My apologies.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the number of 913, does that reflect the most recent cherry sheets from the House Ways and Means Committee?
No, it did not, and that's one of the problems that we face as we try to go through this whole thing. I believe the number was 913, correct, Mr. Sullivan? Can you? The last date I have is 4/3, and I think there is one beyond. Here. All right, the number we were working with was 913. The revised number, based on the new cherry sheet numbers that came out from notification from the DOR because of the House putting its numbers out, is $1,046,039. All right, the budget that we're looking at that was the balanced budget now shows a deficit of $133,000. So even before we go to town meeting for the balanced budget, some items are going to have to be modified. That was our position. The reason for the meeting tonight was, there's some discussions that have to be had before we go to town meeting, and I think we need a contingency plan as to what we're going to do if the budget is amended on the floor and it puts it out of balance. Our consideration was very much as to not only that we had to finish the year with a balanced budget, but we also, if for any reason we're unable to even accomplish that at the end of June, we need to pay bills on July 1st. We can do that with appropriations, even if the balance is is unbalanced. Now, we have received a letter, or a copy of a letter that we received from the Department of Revenue, where the question came up as to whether or not you can have an unbalanced budget coming out of town meeting. And that letter states, and all right, this letter will confirm our conversation earlier today. This actually goes back to an older letter that was done for another town, for Spencer, Mass, regarding the above referenced matter. Pursuant to pursuant to General Law, Chapter 59S21C, Proposition 2.5, the Commissioner of Revenue may not approve a tax rate in the event the permissible levy would be exceeded. I'm sorry, I skipped the first paragraph. Specifically, the question has arisen to what extent an unbalanced budget can be passed. Town meeting may approve an unbalanced budget. Let me repeat that. Town meeting can approve an unbalanced budget. In fact, there is no limitation in the law on the ability of town meeting to appropriate funds. Thus, town meeting does possess the authority to approve an unbalanced budget, i.e. expenditures in excess of anticipated revenues. Pursuant to General Law, Chapter 59S21C, Proposition 2.5, however, the Commissioner of Revenue may not approve a tax rate in the event the permissible levy limit would be exceeded. Were the levy tax limit needed to fund all the town meeting appropriations to exceed the limits prescribed by Proposition 2.5, a special town meeting would be required to effect the necessary spending reductions. In sum, the limitations are not imposed by law upon town meeting per se, but rather upon the use of the tax levy as a funding source for those appropriations. So I hope this puts to bed the issue as to whether or not we can leave town meeting with an unbalanced budget. We can do it. The question becomes, do we want to do it? One of the problems we've had over the last 2 years is we continuously go into town meeting, the evening of town meeting, at approximately 6 o'clock, there's a meeting of the Finance Committee, a meeting of the School Committee, and a meeting of the Board of Selectmen. And at that time, we try to come up with that last set of numbers that everybody can agree to. The history over the 3 years that I've been involved in it has been that at that point, that's where it all breaks down. We walk into town meeting, everybody is, well, not everybody, but a number of people are quite embarrassed because we are unable to do our job appropriately or to do it to the fullest because this budget has rolled on, come down to what we thought were appropriate deals, etc., and only to find out in the end, all right, that we had not reached an agreement. And therefore, although we made a recommendation to town meeting, maybe it was not the one that would be in the best interest of the town meeting. I'm going to go back to one of the issues that comes back, and I think it's extremely important that everybody once again pay a little bit of attention to what happened this 2 years ago, because this is going to come out and be very important when it comes to our special town meeting, and I think it addresses the problem that's existed between the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, not necessarily the current town administrator, and to some effect to what the school committee has been asked to do. And that has to go back to when we had the health care holiday that was declared. All right, 2 years ago, an ad hoc committee was put together because we were sitting in the same situation that we're sitting in today. It consisted of 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, 1 member from the Finance Committee, the town administrator, and I believe 1 member from the board of the school committee, correct? Or was it 2?
I think there were 2.
I think there were. I think also there was 2. All right. At that time, we identified that we definitely had a deficit problem. We looked at the same thing you're looking at today, revenue sharing, and we said, okay, if we took the prior year's budget and we said, what was the revenue? Let's look at the growth. Let's divvy that growth up, and that's what you get. Oh my God! Look what happened. We had $1.5 million shortfall. Looking at how monies had been allocated in the past, we came around to the fact that the school had to cut their budget by $1.0 million, and the town had to cut theirs by $500,000. During the course of looking to see where cuts could be made, the information came up that there was a health care holiday opportunity, and that was based on an audit report that came from our auditors that said that the balance was $2.8 million, and that basically our health care reserve fund for the invoiced but not incurred, IBNR, all right, only required that we needed approximately $1.2 million, all right, to be in the fund. At that time, the Finance Committee was involved, as was the school committee and the ad hoc, and that whole process, and this appeared to be an excellent opportunity to say, fine, if we have too much money in there, this may be an opportunity for us to buy ourselves a year, and that's the only way to put it, buy ourselves a year to try to address these problems before we have them come up again in the next budget process. I want to read you a statement that's in our special Springtown meeting report, and it addresses the issue of the $1.2 million in free cash. And it actually comes from, I believe, our auditors. As at the end of fiscal year 2011, the town had a positive balance of $1,749,166 and needed to rebalance the fund with the employees by granting an employee-only holiday for $454,577 in fiscal year 2012, and the fund would have remained solvent. The Massachusetts Department of Revenue Director of Accounts strongly advised the town to rebalance the fund and for the town to make their full contribution in fiscal year 2012 without taking a premium holiday. We, that's obviously our auditors, support the director's recommendation and made a similar recommendation. The town did not follow the recommendations given, did not balance the fund, and subsequently approved the health care premium without, the health care premium withholding holiday of approximately 2 months to occur during fiscal year 2012. Having been personally involved in the ad hoc committee, having been personally involved in all of the deliberations of this committee, at no point was the FinCom ever advised that this had occurred. So we went to town meeting supporting a health care holiday. Subsequently, we've also had individuals say that they personally talked to the Department of Revenue and therefore they could not support the health care holiday at that time. And what I'd like to know is how could we meet all at 6 o'clock and at 7 o'clock go into that town meeting and not all be advised that that was the situation with the Department of Revenue. I may sound angry, I'm very angry, and I'm very frustrated because this would have made a big difference. However, I can also go over and I can pull our audit reports. I have them here. Anybody wants to see them, the years 9, 10, 11? All right, and I can go to the healthcare side. And in fact, the audit report for 2011, as we said, had a balance of $2.8 million. So therefore, it looked like we had the money available. I will also tell you we have come to realize that our financial system is not in order. For 3 years we've been talking about that. For 3 years we've been trying to get reports so that we can understand where we were on a monthly, quarterly, and even annual basis. And the information was not forthcoming except very, very erratically and usually several months behind. When I go to the next year to look at, well, why did we, in fact, wind up with a shortage that year? What happened? Well, okay, we took the health care holidays. But one thing that seems to be lost is the fact we also incurred $800,000 more in expenses. And part of that was due because people knew that there were going to be layoffs. Part of it was due because there was premium increases. At the end of the year, the balance was $647,000. My goodness, you take $647 and you add $800,000, and what do you come out with? The 1.2 that we said we were going to have. Nobody anticipated a huge surge in the use of the health care fund. So let's stop throwing rocks on the health care, other than the fact that we went through a budget process where 2 of the 3 bodies were not fully informed. That's why we're having this meeting tonight. Not to throw that rock, but to say that we can't go into a town meeting saying we don't know what we're going to do. We can't fight it out on the floor. We need to come up with a solution that says we're going to, and our solution was take an extra 60 days, schedule that town meeting, and then meet. Not once a week, not twice a week, if necessary, sometimes 3 times. I don't care how many. Granted, I don't work. I'm retired. But I do have a full-time job sometimes. I had a full-time job for 3 years now. And that's been this finance committee. And I have to admit, I'm speaking for myself. Personally, I'm taking a lot of time. I'm quite angry about the fact I put in all this time and we've made no progress. Now, as a chair, I get to say things other people I'll gavel for. But I'm sorry. When somebody tells me that the last 3 years have been nothing but a game of chicken, well, you know what? The rooster's coming home. That is not the way to address problems. That is not the way to find solutions. This is not a game of chicken. This is about livelihoods. It's about the future of our youngest citizens. It's about the necessities of life for our senior citizens. And most importantly, it is about the value of our town. That's why we asked you to come. That's why we wanted to explain our position. And that's why we hope that in some way we can convince you that maybe this is the best way to go. Rather than the walk-in town meeting, put a balanced budget on there that we all know is wrong, let another body walk in and say, oh, I want to adjust that budget because it is wrong, and let me show you it's wrong. And then everybody in the audience sit there and look and say, what does the finance committee think? I'll tell you what I think. I don't think the job's been done. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of enthusiasm. And I think it's time that we put it to good use. Not throwing rocks at each other, but finding solutions. Thank you for your indulgence. Mr. Teitelbaum?
For Selectman Holmes' benefit, will you just briefly lay out in outline form what you propose to happen at town meeting?
At town meeting, we expect that if a budget amendment is made that puts the budget out of balance, all right, that our motion particularly, we have right first amendment. All right, our amendment would be to pass that budget to ensure that appropriations could be made after July 1st. That we could meet our bills because the appropriations were in place. The second would be that we would schedule a special town meeting, all right, the 3rd week of June. I realize that incurs additional expense, but you know what? It's not very much when you consider what's at stake. At that point in June, we pretty much have to have a balanced budget at the end of the meeting. And I would expect that the Board of Selectmen and the school committee working together should be able to produce that. I will also say that we do have right of First Amendment at that town meeting as well. And if you can't come up with the budget, then I think our job is to advise the town where the money can come from. But our budget would be more a pencil budget than, shall we say, necessarily. It might not take certain social issues into place, et cetera. It would be a set of numbers. It might even include the use of a one-time fund that right now we're not even funding. The current budget that's sitting in front of us says no money to the stabilization fund. Well, if you're putting nothing in, you might as well not even have it. It also says no reserves for union negotiations. And you're going to negotiate in good faith? Give me a break. It reduces the reserve fund. Those are the types of things that we will try to protect in any adjustments that we make. Right? That's what we're basically saying.
Well, I'll commence addressing that if I may.
Sure.
Just so everybody knows, before the recent election, the board voted favorable action on Mr. Sullivan's budget. Last night, at the request of the 2 newest members of the board, who, of course, didn't have the opportunity to vote the first time around because they weren't in office, they asked for an affirmatory vote of that budget, which passed 5-0-0. Notwithstanding the difficulties the school faces, I understand all that, we're willing, regardless of the outcome of town meeting, to go forward working hand in hand with them, either way, regardless of whose budget passes, to try to find additional revenues for the school. But regardless of that, you know, Frank, you and I talked about this yesterday. I told you about my aversion to chicken salad, that I literally could not get it down my throat. I have the same aversion to town meeting deliberately and intentionally passing an unbalanced budget. We've been told by the Department of Revenue, yeah, you can do it, but they've also said some other words that I think were perhaps a little bit more unkind than they needed to be, but they've also told us, not a good idea. We've heard this language from them in the past. We've heard them say, yeah, you could raid that healthcare trust fund. Under the law, you can do it. We don't think it's a great idea. They told us with Swiss Beach. Well, actually, they told us we couldn't do that. We went ahead and did it anyway when we took the community preservation money and paid for that. Every time we ignore the Department of Revenue, it comes back to us threefold in terms of the trouble. So I think as a fundamental matter, the board will go into town meeting, in my estimation, all the members are here, they can speak to it individually, supporting Mr. Sullivan's budget. However, we understand that town meeting may do something else. And if that happens, I'm appreciative of the fact that you've laid out a roadmap to deal with that going forward. And most certainly, we would work with the school committee, work with the FinCom, as you say, meet as necessary to get a balanced budget in place in June. So, I mean, that's the sense that I have of this board. If the other members would like to speak to that, that they would go through you for that conversation, but.
Are there any other members of the Board of Selectmen?
I'm not really crazy about coming out with an unbalanced budget and waiting 60 days, and I'll tell you why. I think if we were to cut our budget, some of the places we might cut will have already been in swing by then. In other words, all our seasonal stuff will already have been geared up, shall I say. We would have had to already been looking for seasonal officers, would already be looking for seasonal help down at the piers and various odd places for various odd departments. And so by the time we get to this town meeting in the end of June, or maybe it's the first part of July, I don't know, depending on what we do for time period, that monies are already going to be in the works to be spent. And it might be some monies that we might look at to cut at the time. You never know. I mean, you know, we got to talk about what we cut, but that's always one of those places we go because it is what it is. You know, it hurts the least amount of people when you hate to hurt people with full-time jobs. Now I understand that we're going to have to cut the budget. I totally understand that 100%. Okay? There are going to be some cuts, and there are going to be some serious cuts on both sides. We're talking $1 million. We have about half the budget. The school department has the other half, basically. So that means if we were to say it was fair, there'd be $500,000 cut on each side in order to cover the $1 million. Is that the right thing to do? I don't know. I understand the school departments. Believe me, I have kids in the school, and I understand their issues. And I know it's something that we have to work towards helping them out as well. But there are a lot of different issues here that need to be dealt and talked about. And maybe we can come to some common things. Is there anybody who has any idea of what we might have in common? Things that we might have, places where we stand common ground between all three of us. For instance, let's say we can agree right off the bat that the budget's half theirs and half ours. Is that correct? Can we pretty much agree that? We can't.
Does anyone wish to respond to the question?
Sure it
My
is.
answer
They're
would be
50% of the
no.
budget.
Mine is too, no.
They're close to 70?
All right, please, right now, on the FinCom, if nothing else, I can ask the members of the FinCom, at least two. Mr. McDonald? You don't agree with that, Mr. Gray? No. Mr. Terrell? Would you repeat your question?
No, that comes out in your conversation.
No, that should be split. The difference now should be 50-50 between the schools. All right, Mr. Traviano, the answer from our committee,
Yes.
all right, is that we don't agree with that statement.
Okay, what
Mrs. Hugan, does your committee wish to make a position on that?
Well, I think that the original statement was that of the entire budget, 50% is from the school and 50% of the town, and it's more 70-30, or is it more around 70-30 or 65, 68?
65 to 70.
Right. So whether we agree whether it should be 50-50 or not?
So do you agree you should cut, in that case, what you just said, should you cut
No.
680,000?
No,
and
I was
they should only
answering the
cut
question.
320?
No, I think that the question was, through you, is that the budget is 50% of the entire budget. That 50% is town side and 50% is here. I wasn't making a statement regarding where the cut should actually come from.
Mr. Flaherty? Mr. Tropiano, I believe you have,
Okay.
I'll revert it back to you.
All right. Go
One-
ahead.
Let
Let-
Mr.
I give
Tropiano finish,
way
and then
to,
I'll come back to you. All right, I'm going to try to get through this without interruptions, so each person has their say. All right, you're welcome to say whatever you want. Mr. Tropiano, you have any more?
No, you can. I can defer right this minute to
Okay.
my colleague
Is it
over there.
Mr. Silver or Mr. Sweat? Mr. Sweat?
Thank you. I just want to point out what is perhaps obvious but sometimes forgotten, and that is if we didn't have schools, we also wouldn't have $13 million worth of state aid coming to this town. So to say that it's 50% or 60% or 65% completely misses the point that 13 million would disappear from our revenue source without the schools existing. So I also don't think it's particularly meaningful to start talking about 50-50, 60-40, et cetera, because that assumes that everything is equally important. I happen to reject that premise from the get-go. So I don't buy into the 50-50 from a numerical perspective, and I don't buy into it from an importance perspective as well.
Mr. Sylvia?
Ditto.
Ditto.
I have to buy into something.
Mrs. White, let me go to Mrs. Whitehouse first, and I'll come back to Mrs.
It's
Whiteside. I don't know why,
That's all right.
White House, Whiteside. I keep
Whatever.
practicing Whiteside, too.
Okay, thank you. I would have to say that if I were to describe myself, I would be the person on this committee, on the Selectmen, who is the biggest friend of the school committee, the school community. Having been a teacher in the system for 12 years and then, a couple of years subbing, don't do it, I'm more than aware of the issues that face the school. Last year there were 28 layoffs. 6 of them were actually retirements, so there were 22 layoffs. In any corporation, in any company, that is a huge number of people to take away from a workforce without a big ouch. Many of you have heard me say that I sat in a classroom where the roof leaked. It did, regularly. You have also heard me, I think, say that it is outrageous that we have no math books in the high school level that are current and enough of them to go around for the students. On the plus side, we have many, many teachers who are innovative at every level. And I'm sorry I can't remember her name, but the gal in the middle, Bonnie Lasorda, who just got recognized by PBS for flipping the way that she teaches. Wonderful. Absolutely, we should watch a video of how she does it. I think it's just great. On the other hand, for 12 years I was a school teacher. For 24 years I was a banker. And bankers don't like unbalanced budgets. No. Okay? So I am hopeful that, well, first of all, my tax bill doesn't say school portion, other portion. I don't think anybody else's does either. And I'm tired of the we versus they. It's us. Okay? That's my opinion. If we do not have a school system that attracts good teachers, then we cannot produce students who can operate in today's world. And today's world is not a nice world to operate in if you haven't the educational background to work in it. Do I think that we have let the horse out of the barn? Oh yeah, the whole herd left town. But that brings me to another point. Change is most easily made when change has been made opportune to you. And in the school community, there are several people retiring, and I saw a presentation, a workshop presentation by the school where the superintendent had challenged each principal to come up with a certain number of dollars. They didn't like it, but they did it in their workshop, and they were able to reduce their overage, if you will, by a significant amount of money. We have other opportunities. Before the town meeting is what I would call a CFO position. It's very clear to me, after 2 weeks in office, that if I ran a business like this, I would have been fired a long time ago. There are no current records for us to be able to make advised decisions. It's impossible. The last records we have are December. Are you nuts? I'm not putting anybody down when I say that, Mr. Chairman. It's just unacceptable business practices, and we all know that. I am most pleased that there was an article representing dollars for the school community for technology and books that is going before the town meeting as a warrant article and being taken out of the budget. I think it has a very good chance of passing, and I think that people might not have passed it if it had been left in there. Let's be honest, folks. Nobody in town trusts anybody at these tables. I honestly think that's what it's come down to. You say something, you say something else. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not calling names. I'm just, as a citizen, saying there are a lot of trust issues here. So I can't do it in 2 weeks, Mr. Tropiano. We'd be superhuman to be able to, kick the other guys on our board into action. People should have been doing this and listening to you, Mr. Chairman, and the Finance Committee earlier, a long time ago, 2 years ago. The comments that were made obviously were the appropriate comments. The budget issues were the appropriate issues to be raised. I do not agree with my gentlemen compatriots here that it should be 50-50. I think it probably is 70-30. I'm guessing maybe it's 65 something, 35. But I also think that the intent of at least myself is to make this community view the importance of the schools. That's a very long-winded explanation, but I think that if I were to sit with a person from the school committee, I might be able to go tit, only because I have been there. Am I saying that they haven't taken everything out of their budget that they can? No. I wish that they would buy into the CFO idea because for the town. Doesn't mean that they have to do it, but it's a way of saving big bucks. I'll let it go there. I just want to say that I am supportive of the school and the school system, the school district. I also am supportive of my fellow selectmen. We have a job to do, and whether we've done it before tonight is really not an issue. We have to do it going forward. Thank you.
Mr. Holmes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, as well. And thank you, Mrs. Whiteside. Since you want to use my words, let's use them in the proper context. I never called anybody a chicken, so I don't know what the rooster comment is, Mr. Chairman.
You referenced
What
the
I
game of
said
chicken.
was, exactly, sir, was we're playing a game of chicken. You can change the word chicken, as I did last night with my colleague, to dare. Anyone sitting at this table who was here 2 years ago when the town administrator went before town meeting with the health care holiday and today claims they didn't know that was a bad idea needs to take a check on themselves. There were articles in the paper. Members of the Finance Committee went to Boston and brought back the information. Mr. Paulson, you can speak to Mr. Paulson. Him and I both wrote articles about it, stating that it was bad for the town and we could mirror Lawrence. And the same thing was going to happen to the town of Wareham. Those were the warnings of the Department of Revenue. We sat at the meeting, the superintendent was there, and Mr. Andrews conveniently was absent, and I said to the superintendent, what are you going to do next year without this $950? And he said, we don't know, but we're going to move forward. Well, we moved forward, and now we have to pay the bill. We all knew that bill was coming. Anybody who says they didn't know we had to pay the bill is clearly has a little amnesia. The game of chicken comes in very seriously. Two cars are driving towards each other, and nobody wants to blink until the last person veers away. I think it was popular in the 50s. This past weekend, Mr. Sweat, and I repeat his statement over and over and over again, if you were going to build a new town, what are the absolute essentials? That's how we started this conversation. Now, if schools are before police, so be it. If schools are before emergency services, so be it. That's what the school committee is here for. They're here to advocate that that's the right position. That's what they do. Selectmen, on the other hand, are here to advocate for the town of Wareham. We're already playing chicken. It's not anything new. This past weekend, I started getting calls, I believe, on Saturday night, and urgent calls on Sunday morning. If I had had a heart attack, and I've had 3 since I took this job, in onset over the weekend, I'd be dead today. There was not one functioning ambulance in the town of Wareham. So, folks, we need $240,000 for that ambulance to get a new one. Is saving your life more important than a book? I don't know, but I'm sure this group is going to tell us. We have to advocate for the town. And if you call 911 and there's no ambulance to come pick you up, who are you going to blame? There's no blame here. It's a matter of dollars and cents. You either have the money to do something or you don't. If you don't have the money, don't do it. Go out and try to get the money to do what you got to do. But we can't keep providing services on any of our departments without the money. We've got to have the money. So while I favor education, I'm not against education. But when you tell the school board, we have $1,000, and they keep saying we need $10,000, and we're going to go to town meeting and cause a ruckus in the town over the $10,000 we want. That's what we're faced with today. That's where we're at. The bottom line. You can dress it up any way you want, but it is what it is. And in the meantime, I'm not sure what the status is here at 10 minutes past 7, but I'm still not sure we have a working ambulance on the streets of Wareham. Do we, Mr. Chairman? Do you know? Because people need to know this stuff.
They do, and when the second ambulance went down, by the way, the 2 ambulances were functioning as of, I believe, Friday. They both crapped out over the weekend.
Right.
Marion,
Sunday we had no ambulances.
Marion did provide an ambulance to us over the weekend, so there was coverage. Whether there was an interruption in coverage, I can't speak directly to that. The issue remains is we need functioning ambulances. I'm not going to dispute that.
And, you know, and we continue to use Marion, and thank God that our neighbors are willing to help us here. Marion, Bourne, in other towns that have helped us. But, you know, we're losing revenue there as well because we have to pay them. Instead of collecting the money ourselves, we have to pay them. So we're losing money here by using other towns' ambulances. My point is, ambulances are only one example of services on the town side. If, in fact, this game goes forward and there are enough people at town meeting that say, hey, you know what? The town, take another $1 million, Mr. Sullivan, and give it to the schools. I mean, what are we going to be at? What are we going to be left with then? Are we going to have the maintenance folks here at the school doing the trash and onset because we have to let the rest of the maintenance department go? I mean, how's this going to work? That's my point. It's a game of chicken, and we're already there. It's not like we're starting a game of chicken. It's not a new game. This has been going on for a long time. And I hope that maybe this meeting is the start to the end, because we've had these meetings before, and quite frankly, nothing's changed. I think you said that in your opening statement. Nothing has changed since I got here. We keep finding these pockets of money just before town meeting. Oh, we got to spend it. Well, there aren't any more pockets that I've seen lately to go dipping into. So those are my comments. I wasn't calling anybody a chicken. I'm saying that we're playing this game of chicken, and we've been doing it for a long time. But this time, it's really serious because lives are at stake over what's going to happen in the next 90 days.
Mr. Holmes, if I may, you weren't here for I believe, the start of my comments. In the start of my comments, I said that this committee, the FinCom, rejected the balanced budget. When it was originally presented to us, it was a second vote. And the reason why, the first one we came back for the meeting and we said no on it, but we didn't unfavorably vote the second time. We rejected it because there were no ambulances funded. So I agree with you 100%. So that balanced budget, forget the school. There is no ambulance. There are no police cruisers. And there's other items that are critical, mission critical, on the capital side that are not in the balanced budget that the selectmen are proposing to support at town meeting. That was the situation. Mr. McDonald, you've been Mrs. Cattouli?
First, I'd like to ask a question for clarification from the chair of the Board of Selectmen. When you said that you took a revote last night on a balanced budget, could I get clarification as to which budget you voted on?
This was the budget that Mr. Sullivan, his most recent budget, he's reaching into his briefcase. He can go into it. Oh, he's waving it at us. Right there.
The one as printed, the 4.3 file, the original file? Not the one you just handed to me? Okay. All right. That answers my question.
Okay.
Now, if I'd like to...
I also believe that original vote was on the budget presented in December.
Correct.
It was not on even what's printed in the book now. So you reaffirmed something, and you don't even know what you reaffirmed.
Would you like to speak to that? I think Selectman Slavin.
Reaffirmation, I understand, is a sense of trust. What I'm saying, all right.
We originally voted on the budget as presented in December. The vote last night was based on the latest budget that the town administrator had given everybody. We all had it on our hands. The budget that we have currently now that the town administrator has is an unbalanced budget, if that's what Mrs. Cattouli is getting at, because it's with the cherry sheets, we're $113,000 or $133,000 underwater. If that answers that question there.
It does. I just wanted to make sure that we were all, I mean, I got two different budgets I'm looking at. I just wanted to see, you know, where the Board of Selectmen was as far as which balanced budget we were discussing.
The problem is the budget is a moving target, unfortunately, constantly, as it has been for the last 3 or 4 years. It seems to change on a weekly basis depending what happens. The problem I think we have, which we can't solve except for the time frame, is that when we have to go ahead and put all these figures together, make all these decisions, we are so far early from what the real true numbers are, we're making guesses. And sometimes we're not even making educated guesses because we really don't know. There's no excuse, but the bottom line is that we're trying to put together a budget, and we really can't even get it done probably till October till we know where we are, because that's what happens in October. We go back and fix all the issues that we can't fund properly, all the expenses, et cetera. So the basic issue is we're putting together numbers that are best guess estimates, and I do use the word guess.
If I may, Mr. Heath?
Yes, you may.
The fact of the matter is, we've got a few days to make a decision that we're going to support a balanced budget. The Finance Committee has a great deal of empathy for what the school committee has to go through, but there are all sorts of needs in this town that aren't being addressed. And we all know there isn't going to be another rabbit popping out of the hat before April 22nd. That's not going to happen, right? So we can't all sit here and say, well, we're gonna work towards this later on. We have to have a concerted effort here to decide, are we going to recognize that the school committee has an issue and it's going to be addressed on town meeting floor. And I would rather not have a fight going back and forth and letting certain factions at a town meeting decide my future and the future of the entire town. We, as the Finance Committee, have been asking for quite some time now what the direction that the Board of Selectmen wanted to go in as to priorities in this town. We asked again and again and again, and those things were not addressed. Those tough decisions have to be made, and they're not being made. It's being left up to the town administrator to decide where he's going to take money from one step at a time. And he can't address the issue with the school department if he doesn't know what the direction that the Board of Selectmen would like to take this town in. That's what we've been begging for, and the cooperative effort that we are looking for in the next 60 days. We are offering you a temporary solution to a whole lot of work that needs to be done. It gives you the opportunity to decide, you know, whoever elected you knew you had a purpose or knew you had a vision for this town. Now it's time to tell the TA what your vision is and to tell him, are we going to give them another $1 million and we're going to take it from here? Or are we going to say, well, you can have 60, but we can't give you all of it because we can only take so much from here? That's the vision that we all need to see, and we're trying to give you 60 days to find it, because you're not going to find it in the next 4 days. That is for sure. And nobody wants to hash this out in a crowd in the middle of town meeting, because that is, we're not going to find an answer to that, not in a million years. I don't have that answer. I turned honestly to Mr. Heath in the meeting and said, balanced budget works for me. It's got 0 at the bottom. I'm all set. The TA is going to figure out how it's all going to work out, because that's fine. That's fine for me. But I don't have an answer as to where you're going to find all these other needs that this town needs, and they do need them. There's no doubt about it. And borrowing for books, it was definitely a solution to a problem, but nobody's really, really happy about it. And if we borrow for books and we borrow for technology, what is all this technology going to do us when we don't have enough teachers to teach these kids? I'm done.
McDonald?
The reason we're going into town meeting and supporting an unbalanced budget is twofold. One, if you go in there supporting this balanced budget, you're sending the message that it's now the school's problem. I think it's over $1 million, and they're going to be facing it. Now, granted, you keep saying that you're going to work with them to get this done, but you just laid it in their lap.
Absolutely.
There's not any due diligence. There's not any, you know what, let's go with an unbalanced budget and let's work through our differences. This is, we're supporting a balanced budget. It's now the school's problem. And you want to work people to work together, but you send the wrong message when you do that. That's first. To lay the people off in school, which is what's going to happen, is a very poor solution to the problem. You don't think it affects the town, but it does. That sucking sound you're going to hear is the parents who have children in schools that can't afford it and almost can afford it leaving the school system, which will further put a burden on our tax base. When people leave town, you lose tax dollars. And if you don't think that's going to affect the town over time, you're wrong. I believe our CETA director at the coffee hour talked about businesses coming to Wareham. One of the problems Wareham has, and it was copied in the Globe, is our workforce in this town. If you want to attract the workforce that is going to increase your budget or increase your tax revenue, you first have to improve your schools. If you don't believe it, shake your head all you want. It's the very,
My head, Mr. McDonald.
well,
You know what?
no, I'm talking now.
very simple.
No, it's
If you have-
Please,
you
let him
have-
finish.
Go through Frank, please.
I will allow you
Well,
to
he's looking at
respond.
me.
Well,
I
you're-
will allow you to
Question.
respond when he's
And he
finished.
shouldn't address me unless he's
Mr.
willing to
Holmes.
have my answer.
Mr. Holmes,
He shouldn't address me
Mr.
personally.
Holmes, order.
If he wants to address me, sir, then that's
Mr.
fine.
Holmes.
but I
I'll be
should able
finished
to.
in a minute. He can go
Mr.
back to
Mc-
talking.
Mr. McDonald, address your statements to
All
the
right.
chair, please,
Right now, this,
to the chair.
through you, Mr. Chair, right now, this operating budget that you're voting favorable on, is that just it, an operating budget? Has no capital in it, and it's not addressing any of the problems that we have in the town, including the process of dismantling our infrastructure because it's neglected. So you're voting on a budget that, and why we rejected it, is does not address the needs of the town. Just a little bit about this financial position. I come from a financial background, and on the surface and on paper, this actually makes sense. But you're missing a couple of important factors. You're taking the jobs of basically 4 people and combining it into 2. Now, that sounds good. I think we have the talent to do that. The VADAR system has some serious issues. And if you think about our information systems, which right now are on their last legs, you basically have taken a race car driver, gave him a 1970 Ford Fairmont and said, go out and compete in NASCAR. We're not giving the people that we're putting in those positions the right stuff to work with. We do not, if you look at the last 3 years of our audits, we simply have no internal controls. We simply have no reliable information. We're making decisions based on guesstimates, not good, solid numbers. I think it's time for the school committee and the Board of Selectmen to sit down and work through it. Not after you go up there with a balanced budget, but to support the unbalanced budget, and that gives you the opportunity to sit down. You have 60 days in which to work out the differences. I understand Mr. Tropiani's issue about things are getting geared up. Well, that's part of the thing in the decision-making process. Don't gear them up if you're going to shut them down. You have 60 days in which to do that. If you go in with the balanced budget, you've already sent the wrong message, and I think we're just back to where we started before. This has been going on since I've been on the Finance Committee. People have got to start work together, and there needs to be some sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, there needs to be something besides, yes, we recognize the problem, by the way, we're going to give it to you, and then when we get ready to work with you, we will. It's your problem once we vote that balanced budget. It is. I don't care what anybody says. As soon as you vote that balanced budget, you just gave it to the school. And that's sending the wrong message to the people out on the floor. Thank you.
Mr. Heath?
Mr. Holmes, did you wish to respond?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say that, you know, that's all great talk. You know, you have to work together, you have to work together, you have to work together. That's all wonderful talk, Mr. McDonald, but it doesn't account for a dollar. What we have here is a revenue issue in this town. Again, books are a worthy cause. Teachers are a worthy cause. Police are a worthy cause. Firemen are a worthy cause. Ambulances are a worthy cause. Where does the money come from? From meeting together? Come on, Larry, you know better than that. We have to generate some revenue. We tried. Well, I didn't support it that well because one, I don't believe we should be in the bus business. But we went for these 2.5 overrides. We allowed the people to go to the polls. They said no. They don't want to raise the money that way. When bodies know how much money you have and you decide to overspend that anyway, then you're just creating that havoc at town meeting. And maybe that's what we need as a town, to go to town meeting with that unbalanced budget and have people sit there and tell us, yes, this is what we want. Another $1.5 million for our schools or $2 million for the schools or whatever it is. Let them tell us what it is. You can have all the vision in the world, and we can tell Mr. Sullivan to do whatever we want. But if you don't have the money to do it, you still can't do it. That's my point. You can have all the nice conversations in the world, but if you know you only have $1 million to spend, and you insist on spending 2.5, it's not going to work, Larry. I mean, you're from a finance background. You should understand that.
Please.
So unless you have the $2.5 million to spend, it's not going to work, no matter how nice the conversation is. Some of us have to be real and tell people the real story. And that's the real story. We want to spend $2.5 million. We only have $1 million. And let the people decide what they want to spend the money on. And then, when it comes out and we have to cut a bunch of stuff on the town side, and the police don't show up, and the streets don't get plowed, and the trash don't get picked up in town, then who are they going to come complain to? The people who are reading the books? I mean, come on. Nice talk doesn't generate revenue, Larry. And you should know that.
Miss,
Thank you.
I'll say Mrs. View.
There's a lot of faces over there.
I'm sorry.
So
I
that's
tend
okay.
to look to the right. You need to throw stones
All right, good.
or get a pea shooter.
That's how we're going to get to a balanced budget. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I do have to agree with my colleague, Mr. Holmes, on his last statement, that one of the reasons why I do have a concern about going into this town meeting without, with asking for us to have a special town meeting 30 days from now is two reasons. One is because I don't have a sense from all three groups, well, I do know from our group, but what is the consensus of how to solve this problem? And, even if it's, the override, that nasty word override, or raising taxes, or whatever it is, but a general consensus of we're going to have to cut services, and that's how we're going to fix it this year. We're going to have to cut services, and that's the direction we need to go. Or that we need to be able to fight and call a special town election and raise taxes, and that's the way that we need to go. It's one or the other. And the thing is that that's what I would like to see these three boards do. One of the reasons why I think the debt exclusions, the overrides, didn't pass last time around was because there was no consensus between these three boards. And I'm not even saying, like, individually we can all have our own opinions on it, but it's a consensus from a board on what the direction should be. Cut services, that's exactly what we have to do, or consolidate, or whatever it is, and that's one way. Or we have to have a consensus to be able to go and fight and explain in many different ways to the people in this town that we have to raise taxes. The 2.5 doesn't work, not this year. And we have to raise taxes to be able to maintain existing services, or even bump them up a little bit, because we don't have any ambulance, we don't have books in the school. So that's what I would really, I would jump as high as you've ever seen my short little body jump. If we can actually, if I could walk out of here with a general consensus from every single member on this year, cut or fight to raise taxes. Just one of those. And if there's another one, great, somebody come up with it. The other reason why I have a concern about not taking a vote at this town meeting is because of where we are in the school system. Just an example, we have a hiring freeze. So we have 6 teachers in the high school that are retiring right now, and we have to fill them. They're in the budget, we have to fill them, or we're basically not going to be able to offer English this year, okay? So we have to hire these teachers, but the thing is that our superintendent, rightly so, said you cannot hire those positions until we have a budget voted on because of the RIF language that's in the contracts. Meaning, you can't hire someone because if you all of a sudden have to lay off 4 or 5 teachers or 20 teachers, whatever it is, those people get seniority over the people that have lower seniority than them. So there's no reason we can't hire right now. And what that's actually doing to all of our schools is that we're not able to hire the best people. I had a conversation with the principal of the high school last night, who has a brother who's also a principal. He's all filled up. There's actually teachers in our school system that are applying to other schools because they're afraid of getting laid off. They're coming in number 2. So that means that every single day that we wait, we're shrinking the pool of qualified teachers that we're going to be able to get into the school system, because they're getting other jobs in other places. So every single day that we wait by not voting on a budget is every single day that we're going after a smaller pool of candidates to be able to hire in our schools. So I just thought that it was important to bring that piece out, also why I personally and, you know, if any other member wants to speak to that, why I would just have a concern every single day that we delay the vote on the budget.
Mr. Flaherty, you were indicating you're all set?
Unrelated to what Mrs. Vugan was just saying.
Mr. Flaherty, you're speaking very softly.
Okay.
So people can't hear you.
Unrelated to what Mrs. Vugan just said, in the beginning you mentioned something about how the job wasn't getting done as far as, you know, cutting and such. I think that this committee's cut quite a bit. I think we were below level funded last year to the tune of how much, Mr. Sweat?
250,000.
270,000, wasn't it?
270,000.
270,000 less than level funded. We've been cutting this year. We started out around 1.8 million. We're down to 700,000. I think we're working in good faith. I hope you do too. Do you?
You're not allowed to ask questions directly. I'll have a statement to make about last year. There's Mr. Slavin.
We have a situation, and it's been there for a while. The bottom line of the situation is we have $1. We really need $2. We're not going to get $2. You're not going to go ahead and, in the next 6 months, go with debt exclusions, overrides, get them in place, whatever. It's going to take a while to do that because it doesn't happen overnight. Even with a special town meeting, there's time frames involved. The problem is that we have here that the citizens of Wareham have decided that we have to run this town on the $1. That's the issue right now. As of the last time around, they're not willing to spend any more money than what we get. The state's not willing to give us any more money, neither is the federal government. I just got an email this morning from a town called Dudley, Massachusetts, where they're sponsoring a bill to the House and Senate looking to change Chapter 70 reimbursement and also the Proposition 2.5. We've discussed this before. They are in the same situation. The school department, their actual email to us was the school department is requiring this much money. We are going to have to cut substantial services out of our town in order to fund the school piece. We are exactly the same situation. If we were to take that $1 million and take it out of our budget today, we have to cut 15% of the town's budget on the town side. You can just imagine what kind of services we have to cut and destroy. So it's not a simple thing for the town. On the town side, it's not the town versus the school side. We're both very thin. It's as simple as that. There is no solution right now. The solution is we're going to have to provide as best we can. We're going to have to look inwardly and come up with ways to provide the services that we can with the money we have. You can't live beyond the money you have. I mean, it doesn't matter. We can sit there and go back and forth for hours, days, whatever. If you have $1, that's all you can spend, and you can't go past the tax levy, you're locked in. There's no way to argue which is more important because they're both important. Either one has a negative effect on not everybody's home values, but just in attracting business, economic development. Everything is affected. You know, if we keep going the way we're going, unless the town of Wareham wants to change basic attitudes, we don't have much chance of succeeding right now. And I hate to be negative about it, but the bottom line is that you have a set number, and you can't spend more than what's available.
Mr. Chair, just to speak to that point, through you,
Yes.
please.
Mrs. Vugan.
The point that I think that I was trying to make is I agree with you, and we all live in our own households, and if we don't have $2 and we're spending $3 or whatever the scenario is, absolutely. The thing that I just fundamentally disagree with is that we have not truly, we all talk about it, we all know the finances inside and out of all of our budgets. Well, at least I hope you guys know our budget because we know it inside and out. But we all know it. I don't think that we have done, as leaders of this community, a good enough job of explaining exactly what is going to happen if we continue on this road. So you're right. If it is as simply as, you know, spend within your means, and, you know, it's those buzzwords that I see all the time, spend within your means, you can't, I get all that, but the thing is that we are not doing a good enough, because I don't even think that we all know, if we all agree that, you know what, we know that we don't have enough money in this town. We know that we need new revenue. Yes, we need more revenue, but business revenue coming in, that's going to take some time. We need a short-term fix right now. So if this year is about cutting, then I would at least want to start understanding whether we feel next year, should we fight this year for higher taxes next year? And explain to this community that we need to increase to be able to provide the level of services right now, because our expenses are continuing to go up and it's not catching up with the revenue.
Mr. Chairman.
Tropiano?
Well, this brings up a conversation I had Mr. Sweat when I first came in the room. I was on the FinCom back in, late 90s, probably? And he remembers we were talking about it. Back then, we talked about Proposition 2.5 being phased in bankruptcy, and that's exactly what it is. You remember the legislature exempts themselves from the provision of 2.5 that requires them to fund any time they mandate a program. They always exempt themselves, so we always get hit with the money, and they don't have to pay the bill. I mean, it's pretty typical. We've been talking about this since, I'm telling you, the early 1990s, late 1990s probably, okay? So this is problematic. Every town, I would say, in this state, with the exception of probably Cambridge, and for some reason or other they seem to be able to hold it together, probably because they have so much commercial and so on, they're all Democrats, have the same types of issues that we're having right now. They're probably having the same conversations that we're having right this minute. We have multiple issues here. One, we definitely are in a cut year. At this point, we don't have any choice but to make the cuts. That's what it's going to be. And we, as boards, are going to have to make those cuts. And it isn't that the selectmen have to agree with the school committee and you have to agree and all that. I mean, this is all grandstanding in a little bit. I mean, we all know that the cuts have got to be made, and we all know that we can come forward with some ideas of cuts. We also know that we don't trust each other very well because we think you're hiding money and you think we're hiding money. Okay? Wouldn't you say?
I wouldn't say that,
Legitimately.
No.
No, you don't.
No.
Well,
not
it
at all.
does seem that way to me. It just seems like that's the
No.
relationship that's going on. That everybody thinks we're hiding a pool of money someplace. There isn't a pool of money. It isn't there, and there's going to be cutting. Now, by accepting a balanced budget, we didn't necessarily put it all on the school department. In one respect, yeah, they will have sort of the onus on them, but at the same time, we also talked about last night of how we will have to go to work with them and find a way to also solve their problem, even if it means cutting some on our side after the fact. Okay, after the fact. I mean, that's just a point. We said that last night in our meeting, right out front, that we understand the school department has a problem. I'd rather do it sooner. I'd rather do it today. I'd rather sit down tomorrow in a meeting face to face and say, okay, here's our budgets and here's what we think we can do. I'd love to do that. But it doesn't seem to be, it doesn't seem to be something that we're going to do for some reason or another, although I'm perfectly willing to do it. I'm perfectly willing to say what I think we can cut. I have no problem with that whatsoever. As far as a Proposition 2.5 override, we need an operational override, is what we need. But we have to think about, that's what we need. We need to operationally override Proposition 2.5 so that we can operate the government. It's as simple as that. But we're going to have to look at that a little better in order to make our case. We can't say to them, okay, today we need this operational override, give it to us, and then next year say, guess what, we need another one. We're going to have to look a little bit more long-term when we talk about what we need to run the government, and then we have to go out and make the case. And that means all of us making the case. That means the Finance Committee making the case, the school department making the case, the selectmen making the case, if that's what we truly believe is the case. And by the way, like I said, Proposition 2.5 favors in bankruptcy, so if it is, then that's probably a case we have to make. And I'm perfectly willing to agree that we make that case.
Mr. Teitelbaum?
On the subject of the overrides, last year, I believe on the day I got sworn in, I ambled over from the clerk's office into the superintendent of schools' office, and I believe you were in there, Jeff, as well. And I said to you guys, where's my sign? And you looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, where's my sign to support these overrides? And the feeling then was, well, this is going to be a quiet campaign, don't want to rile up the anti-tax people, and so on and so forth. Well, we saw what the results of a quiet campaign were. It was a 2-to-1 drubbing. I mean, let's face it. In baseball terms, it was 15-6. You got killed. I have no problem putting political capital into pushing for an operational override. But I'll tell you right now, I don't think the citizens of this town are prepared to do that until they lose services. They have to feel, they have to see the pain. Look, so many times we've talked about we're up against the brink, you know, we're broke, how are we going to do this? And then at the last minute, somebody comes along, they find a pool of money, they put a Band-Aid on it for the next fiscal year, we get away with it, and the citizens look at that and they say, these politicians are all BSing us. Why do we want to give them more money? They keep finding it. So with that in mind, it's a hell of a sales campaign. And I think the only way you're ever going to make that is if we hit rock bottom, if people realize that, you know, the brush pile that they take their brush to on Saturdays, guess what? It's open one day a month now. Roads, repaving, are you serious? I mean, these are the kinds of things that are going to happen before people realize that we truly are broke. They have to see it first. They haven't seen it yet. And so I think it's a hell of an argument to make. If that's the consensus among the 3 leadership boards in town, eventually, that we go that route, I'll support it. I'll go out there and try to push it, but I don't expect it to be successful.
Mrs. Whiteside.
Gotta look over here.
Gotta look
No.
over here. Over here?
Over here.
Who wishes to speak?
You have a crick in your neck. You can't turn it this way?
I would when you get time, Frank.
Well, you've all spoken. have you?
No.
All right,
you?
Mr. Silva, and now Mr. Sweat. You're next. My apologies, Dr. Silva.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I've been writing down some words that have been used here this evening, and I find it interesting that I think that perception is reality for a lot of us here at this table. The word trust was just thrown around, and for me, and I'm the senior member on the school committee, I've never thought that there was no trust between the school committee and the Board of Selectmen or the Finance Committee. We may have had disagreements, but I don't think there has ever been, at least in my mind, that there has been an element of trust, because we're all trying to do the best thing for the town, and we all have our own responsibilities and our own set of priorities that we've established in our own brains as far as where this town should go and what we have to do as far as our responsibilities to the citizens of Wareham. So for me, I can only speak for me. I've never considered it a breach of trust between the boards. It might be a difference of opinion, but never a breach of trust. But however, having said that, there's been a lot of things that's been said that I do agree with and some things that I don't agree with. But I'd like to just talk briefly about some of the things that were said, like, you know, we have to get on with the game. It's not a game. This is really not a game. This is a very, very serious thing, and the town is in a very, very serious situation. And I think the most important thing is that we have to look at it and look at it from a holistic perspective. We have to look at it from all of us participating in what it means to govern this town. And that everyone in this town has a right to be citizens and to get the kinds of services that they expect. That also includes 3,000 young citizens. 3,000 young citizens that have been unrepresented in this town, underrepresented in this town for decades. They have been underrepresented. We have cut programs. We have taken the school department and turned it into a skeleton structure. There is a perception out there that there's all kinds of hidden money in the school department. Trust me when I say this. I may be a lot of things, but I'm not a liar. There's no hidden money out there. We are about as lean as we can get. So I think the issue here is that we have to establish our priorities, not as a school committee, not as a board of selectmen, not as a finance committee. We have to say to ourselves, what is the number one problem in this town? What is the number one problem in this town? Well, I've done kind of an unscientific survey. And I've talked to people in the coffee house and the Dunkin' Donuts down at the restaurant at breakfast. And I said, what is the number one problem in this town? And you know what unanimously they say to me? The school department. The school department is the number one problem facing Wareham. So if that, in fact, is the consensus, then I ask you to consider this, that if it's the number one problem on an unscientific survey, why is it not the number one priority? So I think there is hope here. I think there is an opportunity that we can grasp right now in which all three of these boards can work together for a solution. I have been saying now for the better part of 6 years, we've got a revenue problem, and you cannot continuously solve a revenue problem on the expense side of the ledger. We're hit the wall, ladies and gentlemen. And one of the reasons why the override didn't pass, or those overrides didn't pass, yes, the people spoke, and they spoke with a very loud voice. And yes, I will say that maybe the school committee chose the wrong strategy. But I would also say this, if all three of these boards had got on board and said, this is what this town needs and why, it might have been a different vote. So I ask you to look at this holistically, look at this as a town problem, not a school department problem, and if we're going to continually lay the problem of town finances at the feet of the school committee, we're going to be right where we've been for the last 10 years. I think we have a golden opportunity here to work together and to come up with solutions that will work for everybody. But do I believe that the solution is a revenue? Is the problem is a revenue problem? I absolutely do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Sweat?
It's always dangerous to think you know some facts, but I'll trot some out in the hopes that people will accept them as facts. First, I was indirectly asked the question whether I think there's a lot of hidden money around. The answer is no. While there has not been a lot of financial competence on the part of the town over the last few years, just basic figuring, spreadsheet analysis of what this town has spent and what this school has spent over the last decade plus, it is very clear that both the school and the town side have been frugal. Now, I'm going to state a few facts. Here's the problem. Most of the people listening probably won't believe them as facts. There is a trust gap, and there's a reason for the trust gap, but we'll get to that later. So there is not a problem of excessive spending in this town. We can spend less, but we will have to provide fewer services. There's another simple fact. When the NEAS people were here doing their review of the high school, they actually trotted out a statistic which I hadn't heard before, which was that about a third of the citizens are involved in the schools as a result of having kids in the system. But when you think of all the services provided by the town to the citizens, with perhaps the exception of snow plowing, it basically serves a minority. What do I mean by that? Well, when I was working 12-hour days and traveling all over the world, I never even visited, before I got to Wareham, I never even visited my town hall in the towns that I was in, and the only interaction I had with my town literally was paying my taxes. That was it. I never thought about town services, except when I couldn't get to the airport because the snowplow hadn't done their job. So it is quite possible for a tremendous percentage of our citizens do not really care about the services that we value because we think it's part of what makes us a community, because they've got their heads down just trying to survive the next day. And that's the next issue we need to understand. And that is, every time we talk about an override, and I think we need one if we want to continue to provide the services, we're asking the citizens of this town, especially think about those citizens that only pay their taxes and never interact with any other citizen services, fire, police, all that. They're lucky they don't interact. They pay their taxes. We are just asking them to lower their standard of living by the amount of money that we take from them. Now, in the 1990s, when Bourne did 3 overrides and now collect $12 million a year extra every year as a result of 3 overrides, the 1990s was one of the best economic periods this country has ever seen. That is not the way it is today, folks. There are people struggling just to continue to be able to call themselves middle class. So the truth of the matter is we are a nation, a state, and a community suffering, and every time we try to maintain services that we think are fundamental to the community that we value and ask the taxpayers to pay for them when they're struggling to pay for basic things like food, clothing, and shelter, something's going to crack. And that's what the problem fundamentally is. Do I think an override is necessary to maintain the services? Yes. Do I think those are valuable services to the minority of people who are impacted and benefit by them? Yes, whether it's senior citizens, children, people who need the police, people who need the fire, et cetera, and yes, I know there's a fire district, is not part of our legal entity, but to the community, it is still part of community services. But if people don't have the resources, the discretionary income, to pay those extra taxes, whether there's a trust gap or not, they're going to say no. So then it comes down to these bodies to literally say, we have to reduce services, and we have to do it with a scalpel, and we have to make sure, therefore, that we are reducing the services that are truly critical to this community so that at some point in time, hopefully, we can start to build back up those services, but it isn't in 2013. So whether we need, I'm uncomfortable with an unbalanced budget and spending 60 days, but like my chairman, if I believed that we were all on the same page and that we all wanted to take scalpel and carefully cut the things that could be cut and still not sacrifice, and yes, I'm biased, the children of this town because they don't have a vote, especially if their parents have their heads down and they're not even doing anything but paying taxes and they're not focused on the town services, then I'm all for those 60 days. But until I get a real solid feeling that there's consensus that the need for that scalpel is there, and we give up on the notion of an override for this year and perhaps focus on it in future years when the economy is better and we think the discretionary income is out there to support it, then to me, another 60 days of thinking about the past and not trying to refine the process by which we run this town, I think it's a waste of 60 days and a waste of taxpayers' money.
Mr. Camarano?
Thank you. Just a few facts. As I am for passing an unbalanced budget, there is one downfall to it that I'd like to bring up, that on the special town meeting, that if we don't get a quorum, in which the last special meeting, if I remember right, we need 150 people, we only had 157, and we don't get the people in there for the special town meeting, that basically we don't have enough time to produce another one, that this town will come to a halt. Okay, that is a reality, and it is a risk that we are taking. Okay, I am for it, But I just wanted everyone to realize that that risk is out there. You don't get a quorum, there's not enough time to hold another special meeting. The town stops. You can't pay your bills. You can't set your rate. You can't pay your bills. That's just one fact I wanted to bring out. The other fact, Mrs. Whiteside, bringing, books and the technology, bringing that out to bond, your bond rate is still, you have to have your house in order and your finance in order. And right now, I don't think Wareham is, so I believe that putting things out to bond, that we're going to be paying a lot more for bond than we actually really should at this time. And whether or not we get it in order, then go out to bond, it's going to be a lot cheaper for us. One other thing, Peter, when you mentioned taxes, through you, Frank, what people don't realize is in Wareham, there are parts that there are just summer people. And you're going to raise a lot of taxes for just summer people who are here a few weekends a year that do a lot. There's a lot in Onset, Swift Speech. There's a lot of people. And a lot of people have these houses in towns that the tax rate is reasonable so they can enjoy another home. If you start raising those, they don't need the town services. Their children don't go to school here. And I believe that that could be a problem if it's pushed to the extent. And just some facts I wanted to throw out there. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
If I may, also, Mr. Camarano, if we do not have a quorum the first night of a special town meeting, the town moderator can set the date for the next date that she knows the facilities are available, and she can continue to do so until such time as a quorum is reached. If we found ourselves in that situation, I'm sure that we could all pull these out and start making some fast phone calls and get a quorum.
That's all well and good. I just wanted to bring that out there, that possibility does arise. Thank you.
All right, for the selectmen, I have to settle one of the complaints over here.
Just,
Dr. Silva.
Could I just make one point that I forgot to make before, and this will be real quick? The thing about working together and working as a group, there's a perception out there that we haven't been able to work together, that we haven't been forthcoming, and that it's been adversarial. Well, I, for one, even though I don't agree all the time, and I probably don't agree most of the time, I don't think the whole situation has been adversarial, and I think the proof is in the pudding. All right, can someone tell me the last time that budget got amended on town meeting floor in favor of the school department? The answer is never.
It's been tried every year. Excuse me. Through you.
I beg to differ with you.
Please.
I beg to differ with you. That has never happened.
Not on town meeting floor.
Not on town meeting floor, sir. You are absolutely wrong.
If we may.
So,
Go ahead.
so the point is there has been an honest attempt to work together, all right, because we have gone in to town meeting with a balanced budget. Last year, to the point that we trimmed $270,000 below level funded. So this idea that we haven't been able to get along and we haven't been able to cooperate is just not true. And I wanted to make that point.
In all fairness, I'd like to address that issue before we go any further. Because over the last 2 years, I have been involved. And 2 years ago, we had the ad hoc committee. We came back and we said, okay, we'll use the healthcare trust fund holiday to fund $1.5 million. That did not solve the entire problem. The school committee still had to go back and lay off how many teachers?
I don't remember. I think 20.
Some,
28.
no, not this last year, the year before.
Yeah.
The year before.
The year before.
The year before it was about a half a dozen.
Yeah.
That was your first cut out of the middle
Yes,
school.
right.
Yes.
All right. So they did have to make a cut, and then there was also some lost federal funding.
That was after the fact.
All right. But there were other jobs that had to be cut. Last year, the way the budget was solved, we went in with a balanced budget, but the reason why we went in with a balanced budget is because the school literally bent over backwards to cooperate with the balanced budget. That's, it was at the recommendation of a member of the Finance Committee, all right, that the school try for the technology on a debt exclusion. It should have been the town that was doing it, but it was like, give it a try, because that's what the other municipalities do. The busing situation is supposed to be a town item. They needed it desperately. They put that in rather than putting it in their budget. What it basically came down to is there was also the question of, well, what do we do about the teachers? And the decision was made, well, we can't balance the budget unless we get more revenue. So let's go for the 2.5. And then there was also the question, I believe it was one of the roofs. put it all together, looked at the town meeting budget, and guess what? We were short $275,000. I went to Mr. Sweat and said, we can't go with an unbalanced budget. The Finance Committee and the town needs you to cut $275,000 from your budget. His first reaction is, you're nuts. His second reaction was, if that's what the town needs, we'll do it. What am I supposed to say from my... I was chairman of the Finance Committee. That's why I asked him to do it. And now here we are. We knew then that that was going to decimate the school system. We're sitting here now $1 million short on what we presented tonight. However, I know that they have also made additional cuts this year to get to that $1 million number. I'll give you the equivalent on the town side of what they did if we look at the top priorities of the town. We're looking at education's top priority, the police department's top. Okay, here's what you would have to do in the police department to do what they did on their side. You'd have to lay off the lieutenants.
It's cost savings. I'm sorry. It's cost savings. That's the reason why the lights go out, because
Go
they
out.
come back on. And
But you would have to.
we were done with this meeting.
All right,
It's
you-
cost savings.
You would have to lay off, all right, the lieutenants, and everything would go directly down to the sergeants. All special details, all special, not specialties, but special functions where officers are grouped together, have somebody who specializes in the area, et cetera. It exists. We pay stipends for some of it, et cetera. All those would have to be eliminated. All training expenses would have to be eliminated. All payroll for training would have to be eliminated. All technology would be frozen unless it went to town meeting. Of course, it already is frozen because we're not getting them anything. But then also we'd have to say, well, what about the administration? All their administrative people would have to come over to the town side. Okay. By now everybody would figure I'm pretty much an idiot, but that's exactly what you would have to do to be equivalent. They've made the sacrifices in the previous years. I think this year, their insistence that we need to do something on the school side is a cry of desperation after 2 years of already making every effort to try to cooperate with us. They just haven't received the acknowledgement. Mrs. Whiteside.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having listened to several of you, despite it being against every bone in my body, I think I'm more willing to go with an unbalanced budget to get the 60 days. It is clear to me that in 2 days or 4 days or, you know, however, it ain't going to happen, right? I have to remember when 2.5 was passed, I stood in front of the town meeting as a finance committee member and said, "You see this dollar bill," which I held up, and I said, when 2.5 fully impacts this town, this is what's going to happen. So I ripped a dollar bill in half because it doesn't work. And that was 30 some odd years ago, okay? I was told I was being a little rash, so I won't do it. I'm not interested in calling names. I'm not interested in laying blame. I'm not interested in playing chicken. And what I promised the people who urged me to get back in politics, Whiteside, was that I would try and bring my expertise to the table. My expertise is twofold. It's in banking, and it's in having been in the school system. I didn't run the school system. I was in the school system. So I knew when I couldn't get a pencil. I knew why the roof leaked. I knew why I had to buy books for the kids, you know? And I was in the year where 28 people got laid off or 6 of us retired. That's an enormous hit. So I really, I think that I hear you on the Finance Committee. I don't like it, but I think I hear the reason why it makes sense. And it isn't just going to be the selectmen who have to do this, right? It's going to have to be all of us. We're going to have to wear our blue jeans and have muffins and coffee and figure out how we all get there.
Mr. Trudell? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Microphone, please. David, use the microphone. You can talk softly.
Thank you. You are correct when you say that we're not going to solve the 2.5 issue in the next 60 days. I've been a Finance Committee member at the end of June for 6 years. And frankly, it's been dismaying to watch the revenues, the expenses, urging the Board of Selectmen to become involved in the budget. I'm heartened at this point because the Board of Selectmen are looking at the budget issue as an issue that you have to address. I'm heartened because I see the school committee here, and we're trying to have a meaningful discussion about where we are. That's the good side. But after 6 years, just some things that come through. When I first started, we would see somebody discharged, town would go into arbitration and lose, and then a check would be cut and it paid off. And I was always curious to where that money was buried in the budget. And finding it in the budget was no easy feat. I could truly say now that I do believe our town administrator hasn't got any money hidden in his budget. The days of being able to lose at arbitration is very, very serious now because he doesn't have that flexibility. This spring, Finance Committee had the chance to have the various department chairmen come before it. And one of the telling things that came to me was our Director of Maintenance, Mark Gifford, came in. And as you know, he tries to do a lot with very little. You in the school committee may feel that same pain. Point that he made was, here's what I cannot do. I cannot maintain buildings. I can't make repairs. He can't keep up with the capital projects because he doesn't have the resources. And he put it plainly to us. I don't have the resources to do this. Now, 5 years ago, Alan and I started on capital planning with the goal of putting before the town what needed to be done. After you look at the millions needed, you realize that it was like tilting at windmills. But we were trying to tell the town that our infrastructure was falling apart. And I think we've successfully conveyed that over a period of years. Some things you don't see. 5 years ago, Plymouth County Retirement System. We had a get well plan, so we would be up to date in the year 2025. Now, 6 years later, we have decreased that to 2033. So if you're doing the math, in 6 years, we've extended the get well plan out 8 years. We're not getting well on the Plymouth County retirement side. That's something that you don't see, but it's there. It's like the capital plan. You look at it, but you don't see it. We've noted that ambulances were a critical issue 5 years ago. At that point, we had 3 ambulances. One was new, one was a couple years old, and one was marginal. We did a lot of work, Charles, Alan, myself, a couple other committee members, dealing with rebuilding ambulances. And 5 years later, the new ambulance is now 5 years old, and at best, you could realistically rebuild it once, except that you can't take it out of service because for 5 years, it's come before town meeting as a critical need, and town meeting hasn't directed the town administrator or the Board of Selectmen to make it a very critical need. So if you think it's discouraging sometimes, it is. It's not necessarily the selectmen's job to deal with the ambulance, but to put it in front of the town and let the town, supposedly the decisive body, make these decisions. And that's not happening. 5 years ago, the Finance Committee put a slide up and it showed expenses. And it showed revenue to be had. And the expenses were outclimbing our ability to generate revenue. And if you laid people off, it didn't change the angle, it just delayed the point where there was no money to pay for that. We're pretty well there now. And it's really gotten to be scary. If you think this is scary, look at next year and look at the year after. Those are the really scary years. School committee, town has been fighting this issue for the last 5 years, and we just keep sliding back each year. You've got 60 days to figure out how to make this year's budget work, and then hopefully you can sit down and decide how you're going to try and increase revenue in the out years. But now is not the time for a 2.5. Now is the time for negotiations and how we can make this work. 60 days is tight. I look at the town administrator. He's required to submit a budget to the Board of Selectmen in December. Of course, he doesn't know what the revenue from the state's going to be. He finds that out sometime in May. He doesn't know where he's going to be in the budget. He's trying to predict something that over the next 5 months, revenue is going to change radically on him. So the best he can do is put his best guess there. His job is to present the budget. Your job, and your job, is to make the budget work. Not his job. The school committee and the Board of Selectmen. Member of the Finance Committee reports to the town meeting. You're going to have to work hard at it. Here's some things I see. School committee has made a very compelling argument about the vocational high school and their increases versus what the school has been. I compliment Mr. Sweat for his presentations. It has been enlightening. I've gone to the presentations by the superintendent where the various principals come in. I missed this year. I got 2 previous years. Frankly, it was depressing. And that's the high point of that. It's depressing. Town has tried several initiatives. Some have worked, most have not. But here's where I am for fears. You'll probably have to lay off some school teachers. the media will give you all the compassion that it can generate. And you will probably have to lay off some people in public safety. And you will get the same treatment from the media. But what I do not know, and the town doesn't know, what is the consequence in black and white of not or having to balance this budget? We need to see the trade-offs. If you go into town meeting, a special town meeting, people are going to want to know, what is the trade-offs that are being made here in black and white? We asked them to make a decision in a special town meeting in June. To make that decision, I think we've got to help them with everything we've got, with the consequences of where we are. They need to be rational, reasoned positions. So that's all I've learned after 6 years. Thank you very much.
It's quite a bit.
Before I recognize anybody, so everyone knows, last year, 2 years ago, a 5-year financial forecast as required by charter was done. All right, and that projected that over the course of the next 5 years, that it was approximately a $10 million deficit that we were facing. That's cumulative over the 5 years. That was updated this year. The original was filed with the town clerk. I'm not sure if the other one was. If it has not been, it should be. And what it did is this new forecast confirms the $10 million. So we've done nothing in the last year. All right, those documents are available, all right, upon request. And I hope all the members of these bodies have copies of those because they're really important. Mr. Titlebaum, you indicated you.
Well, again, I just fundamentally can't support an unbalanced budget. You've done a nice job tonight. You've managed to convince one of our members. And by the way, Mrs. Whiteside is one of the new liaisons the board appointed last night to the school committee along with myself. So you've actually achieved a bigger victory than 1 out of 5. You've gotten 1 out of 2. So you can sort of be proud of that. Going forward, again, you know, I don't see this board with the time remaining coming around to the notion of advancing an unbalanced budget. However, if that's what comes out of town meeting, and I suspect there's a good chance of that, we will proceed in the fashion that Mr. Heath has laid out to us. We will certainly agree to come back to a subsequent town meeting with a balanced budget, one way or another. We will work as hard as we have to, and even harder, to get that done. We will meet with the school committee. We will liaise back and forth. We will do whatever it takes, Saturday meetings every Saturday between now and mid-June, whenever this is scheduled out. We're committed to that. So I just want to make that clear. And I guess at this point, from my perspective, it's a matter of let's see where the chips fall next week at town meeting. Let's see where we are. And by the way, if a balanced budget does pass, or Mr. Sullivan's budget, which I guess is now sort of a little bit unbalanced, but not as badly unbalanced as another one, passes, we're still going to have that outreach because we acknowledge that you people are up against it if that happens. We're not going to declare victory and go away. So I don't want that to be your takeaway from what I'm saying now.
I appreciate everything that, through you, Mr. Heath, that has been said here tonight. I'm going to make a motion after what I say because I'm also, it's 8:30, and I think that there, and people can vote it up or vote it down, but I just want everyone to be aware of what going in with the budget as it's laid out, what it's going to do to schools. I just feel that it's important. This was a meeting that we had where we cut $975,000 out of our budget. from the 1.8, 975, so it basically got it down to 700,000. And the 700,000 that was presented to us from the principals, and this is not just, fluff, this is what the principals are saying, this is where they will cut in their buildings. So we're talking about absolutely teachers, but we're also talking about services that we've put in for our most neediest children, because the state doesn't allow us to cut all the way down, so then we're going to have classrooms of 35. You can't do that. So you can cut so much. Are we going to have class sizes that are going to go up to an unreasonable number? Absolutely. That's a definite. But then on top of that, then you're going to be cutting services out of the classroom that is for our most neediest kids that are receiving interventionalists. And people might say, all right, let the teachers teach. Let them. The problem that's going on right now is that these are the services that we're providing to our most neediest kids. And again, we have more than 50% of kids on free and reduced lunch, and these are the kids that are being helped. It's also the kids that are excelling, the ones that we're seeing in the newspaper, the ones that we're seeing that are going to DECA, that those kids in the lower grades are also going to be affected because now the teacher is pulled into helping the kids that need the most help because we're cutting out the extra services that they need. I just needed to say that. And I know that the same story can be told on the town side. You could basically, the ambulance, we heard about the ambulance. That's why I just felt like I had to talk about interventionalists and the kids. So, but we can go back and forth, and I understand from the town side what that means. I came into tonight and you heard me, not agreeing that I wanted the 60 days. But with some of the arguments that I've heard tonight and the good faith, I do believe that at least we could get closer if our two boards were able to meet with the superintendent and also the town administrator. I do feel that way with some of the things that were brought up today, that, even let's just call out the things that we don't want to say when it comes to cutting polices or, services or schools. And, we have laid it out there exactly what it will do. The motion that I would like to make, and the date can be, I can't make a motion, can I?
You cannot make a motion.
All right. Can I write the motion to you and you make? No, can I?
Do a recommendation.
I have a recommendation.
It would not necessarily be on the agenda.
Do a recommendation.
No.
Okay.
You can present us with a recommendation.
The recommendation that I would like to make, and whatever outcome it is when going to this town meeting, but I know that voting the budget that's been presented right now does lay it at the feet of the school committee, and that we would have to go back and automatically cut. And again, I don't know where the 1 million came from. When I looked at, and the last presentation we had, it was about 695,000 something, so it's about 700,000. So I need to know whether now I have to go find another $300,000 in my budget, because you might as well just all of a sudden say, we need to cut out 9 through 12 and go regionalize somewhere, because there's no way that we're going to be able to provide the services anymore.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sweat.
I understand part of the problem. The 695 is net school spending. What the school committee has not yet done is reduced its non-net budget, and that's another, call it 150,000. So the real disparity on paper from the schools to Mr. Sullivan's budget is the 700 plus the 150 to 850. Does that make sense, Rhonda?
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay. So I've now explained 850 of the 1,046,000, I guess, if I've got the numbers correct, and that 1,046,000 may be the result of the House Ways and Means, or it may be other factors about which we're not necessarily aware, but the disparity isn't quite as big as it initially sounded.
The House Ways and Means you'll find most interesting, the 100,000 that's associated with that. It's like 130,000, I believe. 110,000 of it is outgoing tuitions.
I know.
Mr. McDonald.
Just a couple more points, and we really need to consider this as well, and probably the chairman from the school committee can talk to this. Not only are we, if we go in and the balanced budget's passed, we have a deficit, but we are also going to be in the midst of a new administration, a very new administration, and I'm not talking about one person, but several people in that administration. So I think that's also a concern when we go forward with this. Everybody looks at this as not only will you have the deficit to deal with, you'll have a new administration dealing with it, which could be positive or could be negative, but still, I think that's something, a lot to ask of people walking in the door.
Well, just the point to that, if possible.
Yes.
We're in the middle of a superintendent search. And if you were a candidate coming into this situation, and you had another town that had a different situation, where would you go? So yes, where we're at right now hurts us on multiple levels when it comes to the future of this school system. This is an absolutely dire situation that we have in our hands right now.
For the Finance Committee, the moderator has requested the opportunity to speak to the committee.
I'll make a motion to go.
We don't need a motion, we can just, as we usually do.
Can I just have a point of order, sir?
Yes.
Could Ms. Fagan?
Bugan, that's okay.
Bugan, I'll never get it right.
No, I'm just going to keep saying it.
No,
You're-
okay,
you're
that's fine, okay. Could you just, may I ask her to restate what her recommendation was?
Sure.
Please.
The recommendation would be, and I know that the date, I mean, I just went through scheduling a whole bunch of people, and it was a horror show, but the recommendation that I would make is that the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, the town administrator, and the superintendent meet on Wednesday, May 1st at 6 p.m. to take a scalpel to our budgets. That was the recommendation.
Does that mean that?
Mr. Rector.
That means not voting on the
Just for you,
21st?
Chair.
Is that what she suggested?
So that means you're suggesting the unbalanced budget as well, coming out of town meeting with the unbalanced budget.
That's what
Because
I was trying to
otherwise,
figure
you're
out.
gonna have it thrown in your lap.
Right.
And if, even if it's an unbalanced budget, at least it's a funded budget, so you know that you can continue forward if there is any issues.
Yes, the concern that I have is that, yes, making that recommendation and the Board of Selectmen agreeing to that recommendation is that, in a way, yes, then they are also agreeing to the same thing. So it's the recommendation that I'm making, but yes, it would have to be that way.
Is that okay, Mrs.?
No, I'm still confused because there's some side chatter that I'm having trouble getting around. So
Sorry.
you're recommending May 1st that all the bodies present get together,
The two boards, as well as the
Finance
superintendent
committee.
and the town administrator.
not the Finance Committee?
Well, I don't want to exclude them, but, you know, it's pretty much, it's our decision.
Sounded that way.
We're advisory.
It's,
Yeah, but
it's our,
Okay, and that, so you're recommending that you're recommending that you, as a school committee, are saying that you would go to the town meeting with an unbalanced budget?
as an individual on the school committee, because it would have to be each individual here, I don't know what the process is, like we might have to go to our school committee and vote on that. I don't know that piece of it. As an individual, I am saying as a recommendation that I would support, I wasn't coming into here, but supporting going into town meeting with an unbalanced, but if the Board of Selectmen is also willing to do the same and also go in with the scalpel, which we've heard that you aren't.
Thank you,
so.
sir, for the clarification.
Mr. Tropiano?
I just have one possible suggestion here. Why don't we just table the budget and push the meeting out?
We've done that in the past, and it doesn't work very well. We actually push the whole meeting out. All right? And what you're going to do, if you do this now, is just for the public, a repeat of past performance.
Okay, but we
And
we don't have
there's
to.
advantages to doing that, but it is going to, perception-wise, put us in the same spot we were 2 years ago.
He's not
That's
saying to
the
push it
problem.
out.
And then it's going to be hard to pass anything.
Well, I mean, we don't have to vote an unbalanced budget. We could close the town meeting and just take no action on the budget and then come back at it in 60 days.
And if it fails, then you've got a problem. If, let's say the moderator has a problem getting a quorum before July 1st. July 1st, you can't pay a bill.
Well, we have the same issue, though.
Can't pay, no, you do. If it's unbalanced
it's
budget, I read
approved.
earlier, you can, in fact, if you have an unbalanced budget, pay whatever's been appropriated. It's up to the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator to make sure that everybody stays within whether they feel the cuts will be in the end. The other problem that you also have, by the way, with a balanced budget passing at town meeting, if you go back and you do the cuts, all right, you're going to have to go back and do a whole bunch of reappropriations.
Right. That's true.
You're going to have to refight that budget all over again. Madam Moderator, you asked, to,
Mr.
and my
Mr.
committee
Chairman, could I
said
have
you
a
were
point?
welcome to come
Could I get a
forward.
point of information?
Yes.
Just a,
Is this on the agenda?
before,
On our agenda?
I just need a point of information, just for my own clarity.
Please.
I just need to know, what is the difference between, what is the difference between town side and school side on this unbalanced budget that's being submitted? In dollars and cents.
Right now, the difference is $1 million. Correct, Mr. Sullivan? Which is not all attributable to the schools.
Okay, I got you, thank you.
Okay.
That's what I needed, thank you.
Mrs. Smith. This microphone right there. They put it there for you. That's why it's so short.
I have some concerns procedurally. And I think what needs to come out of the meeting tonight is an agreement as to how you're going to present this. Because once you put the budget on the floor, it is open for discussion to the entire body, which means anybody on the floor can make amendments. And it may throw everything that you want to do entirely out of whack, because that body can say, we don't want to leave here with an unbalanced budget, we want a balanced budget, and they're going to try to make their balance. And we have a nightmare going on as to what they're trying to balance, to make it a balanced budget. As a moderator, I cannot compel people to offset if they make an adjustment to the budget. There is a supposition that you can make someone say, let's cut this and add this. As a moderator, I cannot. That is tested in the court of law. There's an actual court case to substantiate that. So my concern is, by putting this budget on the floor, what kind of a procedural nightmare are we going to have if your wish is here tonight to pass an unbalanced budget with the recommendation that you come back to a special town meeting? As Mr. Tropiano just said, and Mrs. Whiteside, would it make any sense to pass over the budget, but in the motion stipulate and further that the town hold a special town meeting on such and such a date, and that a committee of so many people be appointed to come back to that special town meeting with a balanced budget? I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios, but, you know, when you open up
Just
that
not
budget
adjourn
debate,
town meeting.
now will become a procedural nightmare. So I
You don't
think
have
that's
to end
something that you
special,
as
do you?
the board need to discuss. Otherwise, I'm bringing my front jacket. I'm not sure, we could spend 4 nights just on trying, you know, if you have people that are there that feel very strongly that they disagree with you, and they want to solve that budget that night and want to stay there to pass it. I think this is something that you need to discuss, and I didn't want to leave here. The other thing is, a lot of moderators require that when you have amendments to a budget, and it's substantial, that you get it to the moderator ahead of time. I mean, I don't want to show up the night that the budget comes up and be standing there saying, oh my gosh, what do I do? Does this procedurally meet the law that the cuts that are being made or not being made, because there's only a certain number that you can cut it to? So there's a lot of moving parts, and I think before you leave tonight, we need to come up with a plan. We need to come up with a motion. I mean, I don't want to have 6 different motions and amendments and try to sort it all out on town meeting floor. As Mr. Tropiano said, if your consensus is that you want to move it to a special meeting, let's just pass over the budget and not even discuss it. But I think that's a discussion for you and for you to decide. I just know procedurally it's going to cause a lot of angst among people trying to stand to make amendments that they so choose. And they have that right as voters. Once you open up that budget to the floor. So I wanted to bring that to attention, and I think.
All I see is his lips move. I can't hear a word he's saying.
An agreement as to how you're gonna handle that. Otherwise than that, I can refuse your motion. And if I feel that we're gonna have chaos on the floor, I don't wanna be put in that position as the moderator. So I think you need to really work this out tonight before you leave, how this is going to be presented to town meeting, and I ask you to do that.
Mrs. Cattouli?
You have my sympathy, Madam Moderator, but and if I want to be really honest, I hope it is total chaos. I really do. I hope that it opens everybody's eyes that this is what is really happening here. That if somebody wants to make a motion to, you know, change this entry and that entry and up them all to what they probably should be, then maybe everybody's eyes would be opened. And if we go out of there with a $3 million unbalanced budget, at least they'd have to work on it. That's just my opinion. And as far as delaying it, we've done this once before. So it's kind of like, you know, everything gets quiet and behind closed doors, and, oh, we're going to put off this town meeting for 2 months while the town administrator figures out how to fix this, all right? And nobody talked about it. It was all, you know, hush-hush, whatever. And we went back 2 months later, and it wasn't any better, and the solution obviously didn't work. So I would be really, really happy if it was total chaos. Everybody would get their eyes open. They could have their say. And then, you know, 2 months down the line, 60 days down the line, if we have to do it over again, because we will have to do it over again, because the DOR won't let us set our tax rate unless we fix it, then we'll get back together and everybody will decide. I am disappointed that the Board of Selectmen can't step forward and make a decision to put your neck out there and say, this is what we need to do. You want to sit here and you want to wait until Monday to see what town meeting floor wants to do before you decide which way you want to go.
No,
That
that's
is
not the case at all.
sir,
That's you, Mr. Chairman.
is what I am disappointed by. This meeting was to try to get everybody to have a little courage to step outside the box and say, this is what I really want for this town. I stepped outside the box, okay? I am one of the ones who didn't agree in the first place. This gentleman and I, right here, we stepped outside the box and said, we have to do something. We have to change our attitude and our thinking about this. This is what we're trying to do, and I'm terribly disappointed, and I'm done for the night, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Titlebaum?
Well, choose my words here. I think Madam Moderator has come up with a viable solution. I don't know what. Well, it is a solution because it's the same solution you're proposing. It's a different procedural mechanism to get there. You're asking that we pass an unbalanced budget and go along with that and then come back and hash it out. And what she has proposed is don't pass the unbalanced budget, get together. Heck, we can form a committee. Right here, we can decide what the parameters of a motion are for a committee that includes Mrs. Vugan, myself, the town administrator, another selectman, another school committee person, the superintendent. Town meeting can approve that committee to study the budget and come back with a balanced budget and order us to do so. There's nothing that prevents any of that from happening. And I'll be honest, I think that's a better solution than trying to go in and hash out something, break something first and then go to fix it, or do we try to spend the time to fix it that we're going to have to spend anyway?
Mr. Titlebaum, if that approach had not failed 2 years ago, I'd agree with you. Mr. McDonald?
The issue is whether or not we whether or not we skip over it or pass an unbalanced budget. Well, if we pass an unbalanced budget, that guarantees that when July 1st rolls around and we haven't had an answer, that we can continue to operate the town. If we say, you know what, we're going to skip over the budget, we're going to put it on hold for 30 days, and then we're going to come back and do this. If we do not come to a conclusion at the end of that 60 days or whatever it is, guess what happens on July 1st? We have no money because we have no budget. So, and I was for that. Believe me, I was the one that said that was the way I wanted to go. I felt like it was it could be chaos on the floor with an unbalanced budget. But the problem is, and I'm sorry, maybe it is a trust issue with me. I've heard enough talk tonight to know I don't know whether it's going to happen or not the way it should happen. Well, you know, everybody can shake their head, but there was a group of people called Selectmen that said 5-0. Yeah, we'll just go start it out 5-0. We want to pass the balanced budget, but we'll work with you. That wasn't the answer I think we were looking for as a finance committee, and I'm pretty sure that's not what the answer was what the school committee was looking for. So now we're saying, let's just skip over it. We'll come back second or third week of June, and we'll pass a budget. That's a very deadly deadline for all of us. Because if it doesn't get passed, we don't have a budget, the town doesn't operate. So, you know, if I had a guarantee in my mind anyway, that it was all going to happen that way, that'd be great. And also I want to point out that I don't think a committee is the answer. I think it's all committees. You can't just put 4 people on this thing. This is everybody.
Mr. Sweat?
I came in tonight uncomfortable with the idea of passing an unbalanced budget and hoping we could get our act together in the next 60 days. But like the representatives from the Finance Committee, I have decided in good faith that the Finance Committee's proposal is in the best interest of the town. It is the most prudent thing to do given the variabilities that could arise. And while I have a great deal of respect for our moderator, if, and this is capitalized, underlined, italicized, if all of these bodies are supportive of something, then I don't think the chaos that we might fear or enjoy, and depending on who we're talking about, will in fact erupt. I think the people will accept it and see leadership coming out of the combined bodies, and I think that's a positive. So I'm willing to go in that direction as long as I feel there is a consensus on the part of all the boards tonight. Frankly, I don't feel that yet, but I'm more than happy to be told that I'm wrong by other people speaking.
Madam Moderator, if I may, if you'll excuse me, she asked the question on the procedural side, you know, how would we propose handling it? From a parliamentary side, the best method probably would be for the balanced budget to be put on the floor. The Finance Committee at that time could exercise its right of First Amendment. We would recommend unbalancing it. The debate then would be over the amendment. If the town meeting decided they didn't want to give us the 60 days, then the budget would be passed. Non-acceptance of the motions on the floor puts the whole problem in your lap. If it comes out with a balanced budget, and it just has to be what it has to be, it's in their lap. That's all I can say, and it's in their lap also, because they're the ones that have to make the cuts. All we can do is make the recommendation to town meeting to try to give them 60 more days. I think procedurally that will work. All right, because there is the alternative of saying we defeat the amendment and we just go with the balanced budget. I don't think it's a very good solution. I don't think the amendment will pass, as Mr. Sweat said, unless all the bodies are behind it. Mrs. Whiteside.
I was going to ask you if you could poll the people present here whether there are more than one of us who've changed our minds.
I think that would be inappropriate for the
Inappropriate.
FinCom to ask to that. I think each board should probably do that. I know the chairman would be more than glad to talk about it, to see where we stand and communicate it to their members. But really, you know, I want to thank you all for coming as guests, but I really don't want to push anybody out on a plank at this point.
I think we should have a couple of minutes to sort of discuss amongst our boards here and see where we are. All of
That's a good idea.
Could we take
Could
a
we
5-minute
couple of minutes to,
recess
have
and
some conversation amongst our board?
Would the FinCom entertain a motion for a 5-minute recess?
Motion made.
Do I have a second?
Yeah.
All in favor? Recess for 5 minutes. We'll reconvene at, oh my God, at 8:55.
ask you all to come tonight.
Oh, all right. Could you see me afterwards? I want to give you these. Would you see me after the meeting? I have something for you. Okay.
Dance video?
Yes, that's exactly.
You can't tolerate.
It's the dance, but not the exercise.
Okay.
Truth to that. I'd like to recall the meeting to order, if I may.
Steve, we're getting back together.
Steve.
Steve.
Come on back.
All right. The recess was so that the committees could talk to their own members. If I may, I'd like to go with the school committee first, because they usually wind up going second. So this time, Mrs. Vugan.
And
Did
what are
want
you
us-
looking for?
They wanted to know what the bodies, never mind. Mr. Tropiano asked that the bodies come up with the folder members, I guess, right? If I'm correct, and see where they stand. Okay, Mr. Titlebaum, it appears the school committee has no change. Mr. Titlebaum?
I don't believe we have a change either. However, we do have some additional information from Madam Moderator regarding the form of motions that she would allow from the floor. What she would essentially do is only allow motions that address the whole of the budget. She's not going to allow people to go ahead and say, I want to cut this department and I want to add to that department, et cetera. So what would come out would be Mr. Sullivan's budget would be the main motion, or the FinCom would have the amendment, and those would be the two things most likely only to be discussed. Do I have that correct?
I would tend to agree that's what we would want to do.
Right.
All right, and I would also
And
say...
I would back her on that to the hilt, and I would assume the other bodies would too, because at least we limit the scope of the brawl, for want of a better word.
All right.
I think that's important, because I
Okay.
don't think any of us want to risk cherry picking on the budget.
That's up to the moderator as to what she can do beyond the First Amendment for the Finance Committee. What I would want to see from the when we go in, the Finance Committee has its original numbers here in its report. There's been modifications to those numbers. I would hope that that night, all right, that we would have a final set of numbers from, what his balanced budget is with the numbers from the school, which becomes the unbalanced, and it's in the same format that's in the appendix of this report, so that everyone at town meeting can see both sets of numbers. And basically what it'll come down to at that point is we're going to see the balanced budget with one change to make it unbalanced. Okay?
Right.
And then we try to get you the, and I think if we present it as an amendment from the Finance Committee, that opens the entire concept of the unbalanced to by the 60 days for discussion.
Right.
If town meeting says, no way, guys, it's the balanced budget and that's it, there's nothing any one of us can do here except sit down with scalpels and do some real nasty work. Mr. Sweat?
Unless you wanted to speak.
Just one thing.
Go ahead.
So I think that you asked originally, was there a change in opinion? And I think that the consensus from this group is with the recommendation from the FinCom. The one thing that I'll say about that is that this motion, I feel, will absolutely fail if there is a distrust from town meeting voters that this board can't get it done in 60 days. It's dead in the water.
I will not disagree with that, but I think we've handled all the procedural problems by doing it that way. I think we create the opportunity for town meeting to say, we do trust you, all right, we will pass the unbalanced with the provision for a special town meeting, all right? And if they don't trust us, they'll say, no, we refuse your amendment, we want to vote on the full budget.
Okay.
Mr. Sweat?
I just want to get some clarity in my mind, and I'll be happy to have the chairman of the Board of Selectmen correct me if I'm wrong. But what I'm hearing is that although there may not be any dispute procedurally as to how it flows, that we may face in any discussion of the amendment a member of the Board of Selectmen getting up and speaking against the amendment. And if that is the case, speaking only for myself, and I don't think I've ever done this, I think the Board of Selectmen and anybody else should be prepared for the fact that if the amendment fails, I and perhaps others will get up and propose other amendments and create perhaps not, and I suspect I will get the support of town council with respect to that. And we're on our way to the coveted chaos that Ms. Cattouli has spoken about. So this is, I was hoping that out of this evening we would generate some consensus. But if I am wrong, and members of the Board of Selectmen will not be getting up to speak against the amendment, then I would be happy to be told that I have misinterpreted what the chairman has indicated.
That's a possibility I hadn't contemplated, and I think would require a brief additional discussion with the other members. So, can we have a couple for that? Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Thank you.
Make it quick. We should just, the chair will declare a short recess. I would recommend that nobody leave. Pardon? Yeah, no problem.
I'm not comfortable with this. This is voting on illegal.
He ain't gonna vote for that.
Titlebaum, are you prepared to reconvene? Mrs. Bugan?
Yes.
We're reconvening? Mr. Titlebaum?
What, was there a question, Jeff?
No, sorry.
Okay. I think it best, because we're kind of skirting with the open meeting law a little bit here and our agenda, that each selectman describes his participation
Or her.
if and when an amendment is produced for an unbalanced budget and suggests what he or she might do then. I would agree to not speak against it.
Here we go again, round 20.
That's a good question. It's not a matter of not speaking against it. I think we'll see if it goes to the floor. Basically, if the FinCom goes ahead and does the change in the budget as procedure, then at that point there, we'll just let it go and see what happens with it. I don't believe it's proper to say we're not going to speak. I'm just going to let it sit and see what the floor does.
Then I say we present an unbalanced budget.
I am willing to allow town meeting to make that decision. So in other words, I wouldn't speak against it.
He said he wouldn't speak against it.
I'm willing to let town meeting make the decision. I do not, my mind has been changed about my moral issues of going to town meeting with an unbalanced budget. It's your turn.
Oh, I didn't get that part. If Mr. Bowen was here right now, he'd be putting my butt in the car and not allowing me to touch this microphone, because I don't have an issue with what Mr. Sweat is asking. Procedurally, by asking people to do this, you're basically polling a board or taking a quasi-vote of a board before an action is on an agenda, and you have the town moderating here talking about procedures she would accept versus what she wouldn't accept. It's almost like we're pre-prescribing town meeting before the event even happens. So quite frankly, I think this is inappropriate. As far as whether I would speak or not, I mean, I'm a citizen, I have a First Amendment right. And you cannot ask me not to speak. I may not speak, but it's inappropriate for you to ask me not to speak.
I'm asking, so you don't have to answer the question at all.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Holmes, you do not have to answer the inquiry.
Yeah, I'm not answering the question.
You don't have to.
Because,
Enough said.
quite frankly, I think this board is on a violation of several laws governing bodies, governmental bodies.
I think we've discussed as much as we can possibly discuss tonight, unless anyone else has any comments that they feel they need to make.
So if we got a strategy, what's the strategy? Well, we don't have one?
Yeah, well, we talked about what will happen, what the FinCom is going to do. And that's really why the reason we had the meeting tonight, was to make it clear to everyone that, all right, it probably will be a case of the balanced budget will be introduced. We will exercise our right of First Amendment. We will ask the town meeting to make the decision. They will make the decision, and we'll all have to abide by it. If they accept it as unbalanced, we'll make sure they're informed that it can be. Then that gives you 60 more days to sit down and figure out where the best cuts can be done. If they decide, no, we're just going to take it as it is because, you know, that's what they're telling us is their best pencil budget at this time, then that's what it is. There's nothing else we can do.
Okay.
But we will have done. I mean, our problem is we have to advise town meeting what to do. That's it. And our advice will be to postpone the 60 days. Now, the motion we make will contain a stipulation of a special town meeting the third week in June, all right, which will probably also raise the issue of expenses and all that types of stuff. We understand that. But we feel that's the best advice that we, as the advisory committee to the town meeting, can make. And that doesn't mean that we all necessarily support things 100%. It means that this is what we see as the most viable solution for the citizens of the town. The best answer we can give them. We can't really support either budget. Mr. Sweat,
Just want to say I want to thank the Finance Committee for taking a leadership role and bringing us all together. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for attending. We weren't quite sure what the attendance would be. This has been really
Good.
excellent. I think this should be the start of a road.
Yes.
Mr. Trudell?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank the school committee for making outstanding facility available this evening, because it truly is a outstanding facility.
By the way.
We did pay back the money
And it's
last
paid
time that there was an override done, just so you know. We're good on our bills.
Mr. Trudell, in the spirit of cooperation, you see, the school is officially closed, all right, which means there's not supposed to be any janitors on duty tonight. And that was one of the problems we had was, well, how are we going to pay for this? So when the transfer comes to the Finance Committee next week,
I'm ducking.
you better vote.
Mr. Chair, and I think that's just an important point, that I appreciate the town administrator being here. The superintendent absolutely, I think, would have been at this meeting. It is school vacation week, as everybody knows, and he had a vacation. It's the only reason why he's not here tonight. I just felt that it was important to say that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I would also like to express our appreciation, I think, for all three bodies, the WCTV, who at the very last minute put the ability to televise this tonight together, and also I'm pretty sure we'll have copies of this available as well. So I really want to thank them, because boy, they had like just a matter of hours' notice. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee. All those in favor?
I take a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved. Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Oh, this was.
What?